Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. Greg Gabriel will join me in just a few seconds. We delayed the start of this show so that we could hear what Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus had to say at the press conference. We'll play a couple of clips from there and have Greg react to them. And Greg has a lot of other things that he wants to share. One quick programming note: tonight at 8 p.m. Central, it'll be Bare Their Souls with Dan Aguirre, Johnny Santucci, and me. And we'll take a look at things from a slightly different perspective with the drink in our hands. And we'll also have a very special guest from Barrett Sports Media who's going to share with us what he knows about streaming television in the NFL. How long before we have to pay $39.99 to watch a Super Bowl game? With that, I will welcome in the man of the hour, Greg Gabriel. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I hope we never have to pay $39.99 to watch a Super Bowl game. Put it this way: if that happens, I'm already going to be, 60.
Yes, exactly. You and
that's going to be a way off. So
yeah,
I don't
totally
think we have
agree.
to worry about it for a while.
But we have learned that Amazon Prime is going to have one of the playoff games streaming, and so you'll have to pay for that and endure the commercial.
But Paramount did last year, this past season. So
that is true.
It's going to say if you're a subscriber, you get it. I mean, I think everybody's got Amazon Prime. Not everybody, but most people do. And I had Paramount Plus, so I didn't have to pay for that game either. But I guess, that's they're going to do that a couple times a year. They do it for the Thursday night game. I don't like the streaming. It's just the way it comes across the feed. Just it almost seems to me, and maybe it's my Wi-Fi or my television, but it seems like, there's the picture, but the announcers are somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's like the sounds of the game are totally different than when you're watching an over-the-air broadcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
it totally does. And then there's the delay that you get on streaming. So if you happen to have social media on, you're on X, you're learning about the play before you're actually seeing it on TV, which is another strike against it.
You do that with a broadcast too, because there's about 15 seconds with that. There's been times where, you're waiting they're coming out of a timeout and you're waiting to see what if there was a replay overturn or something like that, and I look at my X feed and Biggs is already telling me what the thing is, and they're still in commercial.
That's right. Well, we got a lot to talk about. Just one other personal thing. I got a little blemish here, and because I'm on blood thinners, I've been bleeding profusely. It's just gush. By the time this show's over, I might pass out from the loss of blood. So
just put a big Band-Aid on there.
I was tempted to, and my wife said, no, we'll put some makeup on. I get out of here. All right, let's start with
your wife's home. My wife's home today too, so I got to be careful what I say. I can't swear.
Oh, that's right. So this will be the PG version of GTF. All right, you teased out on X yesterday that you were going to make a special announcement about a special guest who's going to appear with us in 2 weeks. Take it away, sir.
Well, there's a little story to this first, because in all honesty, I had no idea I could score this guy. I've known this person a long time, but I just thought, no, this might be a little bit too big for us to get on this show. And a follower who watches the show and follows me on X, his name is Andrew Streetmatter or Strike Matter. He sends me a text or a tweet, and he goes, why don't you have him on the show? He goes, everybody would listen to that. And I said, you know what? That's a good idea. I'll ask him. So I sent the one and only Peter King ATEX, and I've known Peter since 85 or 86. Peter was the Bears beat writer for Newsday, Long Island Newsday. I don't even know if Newsday is even around anymore. So he would cover the Giants for a few years, got to know him really well. We've had a very good relationship ever since. We talk a lot, especially this time of the year. And so I sent Peter a text. He has agreed to come on in 2 weeks. Next week, he's going to be out visiting one of his kids out on the West Coast. So he said he'd be happy to come on the week after. So that's our surprise guest.
That is awesome, awesome, awesome news. Did you ever, when Peter would come up to you and try to fish some information from you, did you ever disclose something to him that maybe you thought afterwards, maybe I shouldn't have said that?
In all honesty, and we maybe even talk about this, I don't think there was ever a case when I was actually working in the league that he ever hit me up or stuff like that. But since when we talk, because I talk to a lot of people, he talks to a lot of people, and we, especially when you get in like the 2 weeks before the draft or the week leading up to the draft, and what are you hearing? And he's telling me what he's hearing, and I'm telling him what I'm hearing, and we're throwing stuff back and forth. And we both got good sources. He got better than me. I mean, he's the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. And just to get him to come on, I'm very thankful for, because I think it'll be a great show. He said he'd give us 20 minutes to a half hour. We'll probably get him at least a half hour, but really, really good guy. But I'll tell one story, and I'll bring it up with him.
Sure.
After I'd see him at like the Senior Bowl or the Combine and stuff like that. And then once he started working for Sports Illustrated, and left being a beat writer. But then was when I was here, and I went to, and Rutgers, Shiano was the head coach, and Rutgers had a pretty good team. So this is in the early 2000s. And there was a Thursday night game. I don't remember who they played, but the place was packed. And so I saw Peter in the press box. We had a great conversation that day. And that, I think, and I got to ask Peter because you might remember better than me, James Gandolfini, because, Tony Soprano led the Rutgers team out of the tunnel.
Oh, cool.
Which was really, really cool because Gandolfini was a, big New Jersey guy and a big Rutgers fan. So he was there at the game, and it was just a lot of fun.
Sounds fantastic. The other thing about Peter King's retirement is that there are very few like him. I mean, on Monday morning after, all of the football games, he'd write this massive column of like 10,000 words. And usually I
didn't know until yesterday when I read it yesterday. How about 15,000 to 16?
Wow. That's just amazing. I mean,
that's not a column. That's a book.
Yeah, exactly. Most news stories on the internet are about 700 words long. So when you're saying 15,000, 16,000, that's like 20 times the amount. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He's
so
so
good
at
stuff I do for Windy City usually averages out around 11 to 1,200. And I'm just thinking times 15, that's got to be insane. But I know he spends, and that's one of the things I want to ask him, because I think he does little sections during the week, and then and the hard thing is putting it all together. That's got to be an impossibility. But I'll tell you, I never saw this one coming. I got up real early yesterday, and that's the first thing I do on Monday is I get on my phone and see what Peter has to say. And it's like, I look at the headline and go, what's this mean? And then I'm like, 2 paragraphs in, and I go, holy cow. He's hanging it up.
Indeed. That was amazing.
He's still, he's going to be 67 in a few months. He's still a young guy. Yeah. But he's had such a successful career.
Yeah, and he writes in his column that he's just looking forward to watching NFL Red Zone with Scott Hansen. That's the show where they go from game to game to game,
Right.
and then deciding at halftime whether he's going to continue to watch the Sunday night game, stay up and watch it all. He's well deserved time off. Hey, in that final article, he did drop a bomb, and he
Bomb nugget, however you want to call it.
yeah, he wrote, that the Bears he had a feeling that the Bears should make a trade. Let me go to this one first. With Washington, trade the Bears' first round overall pick. That's the first pick in the draft to the Bears in exchange for the number 2 overall, a second round pick this year. That's number 36, and a 2025 first round pick. And then he said we should take that second pick and trade it to Atlanta. And in exchange, you get the 8th overall, the 43rd overall of this year's draft, plus a first and second round pick in 2025. What do you think about that trade scenario?
Well, I know Peter well enough to know if you said somebody gave you that, and he's going to say, "Oh no, I didn't talk to anybody. I just made it." I'm just thinking it. Bullshit. This is his final column ever, and he drops a big nugget. You don't think he's got some info?
Yeah. I would guess that he at least has heard that from some prominent sources.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say it was necessarily. No, he's very fond of Ryan Poles. Mm-hmm. He's done a couple nice things about him already within the last 18 months, at least 2. But he's got better connections than anybody in the league. I mean, he could have got that anywhere. But what's interesting is that later in the afternoon, and I'm not going to get into it because this is rumor season, and who knows what's true and what's Memorex or whatever. But I got a call from a guy very well connected. He's not with the team. He's not with the media, but he's very well connected with GMs, the league office, agents, etc. And he said, there's a lot to that. And he said, it wouldn't shock me if it happened before the combine ended.
Wow.
Now, I like, no, I can't see that. I can't see, I could see it happening. I couldn't see it happening before the combine ended. But again, it's rumor time. And there's going to be lies. You don't know what's real, what's not real. I think when you listen to the 2 press conferences today, they're only 15 minutes apiece. Both guys straddled the fence. Poles played both sides of the fence really well. He's getting pretty good at the game. Mm-hmm. And keeping the poker face didn't lead you to believe it was leaning one way or leaning the other. Just saying, But what's interesting is that, so I had to run out, do a quick errand for my wife shortly after that. And I turned on the score, and it was transition between the Mully and Haas show and Bernstein. And Bernstein says, well, he laid out that last year's trade has to be the base, just the foundation that they got to do better. And I'm going, I didn't hear that. And I listened to that. He said, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
You're not going to, if you went back one spot, you're not going to get back what you got last year for going back 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an impossibility. Yep. You're going to get a premium. And to further that, what I was saying about this conversation I had yesterday, this guy said, there is a team that wants number 1 badly. Mm-hmm. And they know they're going to have to pay for it. So what that is, we'll see. And regardless of what it is or if it's true, the Bears got to say, hey, okay.
Indeed.
We're good.
Greg, one of the things that you've been criticized for is that you have said Caleb Williams, after the Notre Dame game, had a terrible or poor or whatever the word you
I
use.
said you had to drop off, and it wasn't.
You had to drop off. Yeah. Now, people have contested that, I'm sorry. Say it again.
They look at the stats.
Yeah, I looked at the stats.
The stats isn't the game. Stats
exactly.
Don't
exactly.
You got to look at the game. How he plays the game. You know, you have the one game as. You know, they lose the game. I forgot, maybe it was a Washington game, but they lose. It was a close game. I think it was Washington. It was 49-42 or something. And he refuses to talk to the press. But before he even goes in to talk to the press, he's got to go sit on mommy's lap and cry for 10 minutes. You know, I started playing this game when I was 8 years old in 1959. Been involved with the game ever since. So that's almost 64 years. It's 64 years, going on 65. Yeah. Damn, I'm getting old.
Since I've been alive, by the way. So, you are going to go.
I have never seen that. Never once have I seen that. Never once have I seen anything close to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, my first thought when I saw that, and this was 2 weeks after the Notre Dame game or something, I'm going like, can this guy handle adversity? Mm-hmm. And these are the questions I have. These are why it came off. It has nothing to do with the talent. It has everything to do with from here up.
Mm-hmm.
Can he handle it? And like Ryan said in the I don't know if it was it was the postseason presser not too long ago. You know, he goes, you got to be thick-skinned. You got to be tough to play quarterback in this town.
Yes, indeed. And he said it again today.
Yeah, and Flus comes back. It's all about the character and the leadership at that position. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that people say, and don't misconstrue character with bad person, because it's football character, not personal character. He is not a bad person. In fact, by all accounts, he's a pretty good guy. But is he what you want leading your football team? And these are the questions I have. I'm entitled to have those questions.
Right.
And when I say something, I say it as if I was still sitting in Dallas with Jerry, because this is what I'd say to Jerry. You know, that was my job to say that. Okay. And I'm not going to change that way of thinking because fans want what the press has built up to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. Well, that's not the case.
Right.
Is he a good player? Yes. I think I put out, because you keep hearing stuff, there could be a scenario, and I did probably put this out an hour ago. You know, a guy said, do you think they're going to keep or trade Caleb? I said, well, we'll find out shortly. I said, but there is a scenario where they trade number one and trade Caleb and take another quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy goes back, no. So then I came back and said, whatever they're going to do, it's going to be the decision that Ryan Poles, Cunningham, Flus, personnel department as a whole, probably the offensive coordinator, feel is the best thing for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to give a rat's ass whether you agree, I agree, or a fan agrees.
Yeah,
they don't have to. Technically, you want to please the fans. They got to do what's right for the team. Now, I saw a thing today. The worst thing I have in my computer is the home pages. The MSN network, Microsoft News Network or something. Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's so much BS on that. Oh, usually it's rumor or something like that and not real. But there was one that Boomer Esiason said, and this was just within the last hour, the one headline that if Poles doesn't take Caleb, it's a fireable offense. Who the hell is Boomer Esiason?
Yes, exactly. He's looking for clicks. Can you hear me now? Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
Wait a minute, it might be by saying there's.
Yeah, testing 1, 2.
That was good. My plug wasn't in.
Yeah, he's boomers looking for clicks, just like everybody else in the media. That's his job nowadays. So, hey, Jason has a interesting question here that I want to share. Can anybody, he asked, can anybody tell me what big games Caleb has won? How's his record against the top 25? Well, guess what, Jason? I just happen to have that graphic that was popular last year. Against top 25 teams, the column on the right, he has a completion percentage of 51% versus 70% against non-top 25 teams. His passing yardage per game is over 100 yards less, and in those
that looks
top
like
20,
150 to me, like
yeah,
147.
Yeah. Well, and his touchdown interception ratio, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions against top 25, and then 78 touchdowns, 7 interceptions against non-top 25 teams. He's clearly stat stuffed against opponents who are not ranked, and that has to be a concern, right?
Yeah, it's got when I used to look at a quarterback, the first tapes I would watch were with a quarterback, you want to watch everything. Okay.
Right.
You're not going to get, with an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, you watch 4 or 5 games, you got a pretty good feel for what he is. Because you start seeing the same thing game after game after game after game. So you know what the guy is. But the quarterback, you got to watch everything. And you gotta break it down. Like, okay, what's he doing on first down? What's he doing on second and long? What's he doing on second and short? What's he doing on third and long? What's he doing on third and short? How many drives stall in the red zone? How many drives does he take down and get a TD or a field goal? You got to really break down the game totally. Mm-hmm. So that stuff becomes important. But we always did, though, and this was before analytics were invented. We used to make up our own. So it's not like we didn't use them. We just didn't call it that because the word wasn't invented.
Yeah.
We used to break down that same thing. What do you do against winning teams, top 10 teams, etc.? What do you do against, average to Midland type teams or whatever? Where was the big game versus the poor game? How often did he play poorly against a good team? So, yeah, that's all important because you want your guy to come up big in big games. Now, I'll tease another guest we got committed. Remains to be seen if we get him. Let's say, because he's a local guy, JJ McCarthy out of Michigan, who's from down in the southwest suburbs. JJ went undefeated. He came up big in big games. Mm-hmm. National championship game, Big Ten championship game, first playoff game. I mean, so, you can't say, and he came up with good games too. Mm-hmm. Now, I am not saying JJ is a better talent than Caleb is, just using, the criteria that you use for comparing, quarterback A to quarterback B. But in saying that, was it last week, I reached out to his agent, and his agents, I said, hey, I'd love to get him on the show because he's a local guy. And, it'd be an interesting show, get him on for, 20 minutes, half hour.
Yeah.
And he said, sure, but not until after the pro day. And the pro day, it's like the 20th, 21st of March, something like that. So it's still a little more than 3 weeks away. So after that, and then he's going to be having some private workouts and 30 visit type things. So, whether it actually comes to fruition, I think that remains to be seen. But let me ask you this, as long as I got you here, is situation like that, we could pre-record something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's going to be what I'm going to do, when I talk to, and his agent is Brian Arol, who actually was Roquan's agent for his rookie year. Mm-hmm. And Brian is a Buffalo guy, so I've known him for a long time, a former quarterback himself. And, I can hit Brian with, hey, look, we can pre-record this. We can do it. We can do it on a Sunday if that's what works best. Just pre-record it, and then when we do the show, have him on.
Sounds good. And I'll pose this question to you, which was actually posted at 8 a.m. this morning. Greg Maliska got an early start to his day. He asked, please ask Greg if J.J. McCarthy is worthy of the Bears' 9th pick in the first round, providing, of course, that the Bears trade out of the first pick and keep Justin Fields. So your thoughts on J.J. McCarthy and his draft value?
You know what's funny about that? There's a lot of people that don't think he's going to make it that far.
Really? To the 9th pick, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's one guy I talked to yesterday who said, I think he's a top 5 every day.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be the guy, according to people that know quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I like him. In fact, I'll tell you who said this. This is because we've had him on the show. It's Pep.
Oh, okay.
Pep's got ties to Michigan, and because he was the offensive coordinator there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows Drake May. He knows JJ. He said, he told me, it was a few weeks ago, he goes, that guy's going to be the steal of the draft.
Wow.
He goes, first of all, the intellect is off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
The leadership is off the charts. He said, what hurt him, and it's funny the way he said it because, Pep played quarterback, so he's partial to, and he's been a play caller and offensive coordinator, so he's partial to that part of the game. So Pep goes, the thing that you couldn't see what you wanted to see from Caleb because he had a goddamn offensive line coach. It's an offensive coordinator who called plays like an offensive line coach. And so, which I thought was kind of interesting. He said, so there's things you wanted to see that they just didn't have in their offense.
Right. Wow, that's quite the endorsement. I mean, this draft just gets more and more intriguing with each passing day.
But there's other people that say, just to finish up on JJ,
sure.
There's other people that say, like this week when interviews start, and then when he does private workouts and goes in for 30 visits, that he's going to blow coaches away with his knowledge and his ability to dissect things on the board.
Yeah,
and that's where you're gonna see his name, because coaches always talk. Scouts don't talk, coaches do. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Josh Norris posted a video, and I'm going to show a clip of that tonight on Bear Their Souls, of him being interviewed, him interviewing Drake May. And I was really impressed with Drake May's knowledge. I mean, this guy knows defenses, how to read defenses, pre-snap, during snap. He's like leap years ahead of what Mitch Trubisky displayed when he went to the board with John Gruden, which was a really bad moment for Mitchell Trubisky. And
I never saw that. Probably a good thing I didn't. But I love that show. I'd love to see ESPN bring him back just for that.
Oh my gosh, I'm with you on that. Totally with you. All right, let's get to some of the comments, a couple of the comments made at the press conference today. This was Ryan Poles giving an update on Jalen Johnson and the contract negotiations. Greg, it's about 40 seconds long.
Okay. In the process of getting Jalen Johnson done, conversations are going well at this time. We feel like we've done a really good job kind of coming to the table strong. Showing the respect that he's due just in terms of his production through his career, and really an emphasis on the turnovers that he created this past year. Our expectation is that's going to continue to go as he's with the Bears. When I say coming strong, it means cash flows are strong, guarantees are strong. The term is strong for him. Being hit with his age, there's a really good opportunity for him to go back to the market again. And continue to earn money and play well, and hopefully that's with the Bears for a long period of time. So I'm excited about that.
This is locked in. Sounds to me like it's just locked in.
No, I don't think it's a done deal yet, but it sounds pretty damn close.
Yeah.
When you go back, Flus was sort of the same way. He didn't go as in depth as Ryan did. There's probably a little more than die shot and teased across, but they're getting close. But he did fall back on, if I got to use the tag, I'm going to use the tag. And sometimes that, you could put that tag on there just because you're not done with the deal and you don't want them to hit free agency. So,
Right.
You're close, but you're not done. You can put the tag on them and finish the deal 3 days later. And that has been done before. Now, the tag, you got until next Tuesday. So there's another week to get this done before you have to finally put the tag on it. You can do it right now, but you don't have to do it until next Tuesday. So I think next Tuesday is the 5th, right? Because that's the tag day. So so there's a lot of time. You can get a lot of things done in a week. I mean, it took 48 hours to do the Montez Sweat contract after they made the trade. When people want to get a deal done, it's amazing how quick you can get it done.
Typically, when things are taking a while to develop and it appears, and both sides are saying it's going to get done, isn't the negotiating part is the guaranteed dollars? Jalen wants 80% guaranteed and the Bears want 50%. Isn't that typically the deal?
Well, that can be some of the sticking points, especially now because players are trying to get more and more guaranteed money. And your guaranteed money is really, it's a combination of two things. It used to be strictly your signing bonus, but now they're guaranteeing parts of your salary, on certain dates. Like if you're still, and I'm just making up the verbiage here. If you're still on the roster the 10th day of the new league year, 50% of your salary for that year is guaranteed or something like that. You know what I mean? So
gotcha.
They have stipulations like that. Those are all called paragraph 5 stipulations. So they all have to be like handwritten into the contract and then signed to it. And that's what takes the time. Go back to McGlinchey last year. Poles, I guess, was good at that 17 million, 17.5 average to pay the guy based on what he's done. What he wasn't good with was the amount of guaranteed money the guy got. He was looking at the age and stuff. You go, no, because then if it doesn't work out and you got to, get rid of the guy or whatever, that's where you get slapped with the cap hit. And that's what happened too much with Ryan Poles. Right. There was too much stuff that was in there that came back to haunt you because the contract was written poorly.
Now, about 2 hours later,
Ryan Pace, excuse me, I said
Ryan Pace. Yeah. About 2 hours later, Eberflus met with the media, and one of the questions that was posed to him was about the safety position, staying with the defensive backfield, and Flus offered this profile of the safety position. 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're looking for a guy that pairs well with him. Jaquan is the guy that's a strong safety. He comes down, mans tight ends. He's a big hammer. The guy that we'll be looking for has got to have athletic ability. He's got to have range. He's got to have great communication skills. And he's got to have ball skills. We want all of our guys to have the ability to take the ball away. And he has to have that too. And then eventually grow into a leader. If it's a free agent, he's going to have to feel the temperature of the room and dive into the leadership role. And if it's a rookie, he's going to have to develop that with the other guys.
You know anybody like that, Greg? And I'll ask Berlissimo, who I know has scouted probably tons of safeties already. He's in the chat.
I put some names out there, and I don't have that stuff in front of me because I usually have it in piles here on this desk. And my wife, because she's working from home today, I had to clean the office and everything to put away. So I'll have my mess back next week.
We'll talk about it during free agency because there might be some free agents that are that way. Would you prefer they get a veteran safety or would you prefer?
Absolutely.
Really? Tell me why.
Well, safeties, you see a couple safeties go high, but generally they're a later day 2 or even into day 3 player that prospers. And look at, Jackson. Jackson was a 4th round pick who came in across. And that's what a lot of times it happens. So you're guessing and you're hoping. But I think with this team today, if you can get two things I'm pretty sure they will do in free agency. One is a center, one is a safety. Now, he mentioned we got to get better. We got to have another guy on the defensive end. Okay, you could do that in the draft where they're picking that number 9 spot, but it's no lock in that. Some of that depends on, well, what are you doing with 1? And they're not going to tell us exactly what they're doing with 1 or whatever. So I came to where I didn't think that, we might have touched on this last week, but where I didn't think they would, go big, spend big money on defensive end in free agency. I've come off that a little bit. Now, I don't think Allen is going to be available. I think, Jacksonville will probably tag him. I think Burns will get tagged. So that leaves Danielle Hunter. Now, Hunter, that's going away from the age that Poles likes to do his hunting with, because Hunter will be 30 in October. But when you look at his injury history, he's been relatively clean. And the 1 year when he missed like 9-10 games, it was a soft tissue injury. It wasn't like a knee or a shoulder, one of those more catastrophic type injuries.
Right.
So could that happen? Yeah, but he's going to cost you what Sweat cost. Maybe even cost you more. So, because, you got that influx of money last year. Now what's funny about it, let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
Everybody thought that's how much money was going to be there.
It was no big surprise.
Yeah. In fact, Brad from Over the Cap and PFF, he said, well, we were only $1 million off on our estimate. That's what a lot of teams thought. So, but the media made all this big deal out of it. That, God, there's all this new money out there, and it's going to change everything. Teams had a pretty good idea what it was going to be.
And Creighton is asking, with that increase of the cap, does that kill the narrative about resetting the quarterback market? Meaning that now, you don't have to worry about the money that Justin Fields would make in year 4, 5, 6 of his deal.
Well, Boris said if he's here, he's making that. It's do you pick up the 5th-year option? The 5th-year option already came out. I think it's $36 or $38 million for him next year. You don't have to pick that up. Now, a thought that came to my mind today, and I'm glad that question was asked because I might have forgot about it, was what's going on. And you watched how non-committal Ryan was with about Fields. He goes, but he did say, we want to do right by Fields. He goes, I understand the situation. He said, part of that, what hit me right away was, we're already playing the leverage game. That has nothing to do with whether you're keeping him or not keeping him, but has a hell of a lot to do with a future contract. Hey, this guy had, you got to use all the leverage you can in contract negotiations.
Indeed.
So, hey, we almost got rid of this guy.
Right.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do maybe something like Green Bay did with Love. We'll do 2 more years. At X amount of dollars and blah blah blah. And he continues to grow. He's only going to be 26. He's still going to hit free agency again. You're not locked into that. People think they're locked into paying that 5th year and then have to extend him at $50 million a year. That is not true. Could it be true? Yes. Is it absolute truth? No. And like I said, that when Ryan said that, that's the very first thought that I had. When he's already publicly playing a negotiation game, if he in fact is deciding on keeping it.
J2K asked a question about these salary cap going up. He says, when that cap goes up, do free agent contracts also get inflated? He assumes so. And I think, agents are saying, you got more money. My guy is worth 10%
but then
more.
I can go back to what we said a little while ago. Everybody knew this was the money that was going to be there within a few $1 million.
Right. Yeah.
So it's illegal. It's tampering. they've been talking to these guys for a while. You know, do they have set deals? No.
Mhm.
But can you know, hey, Joe, what's it going to cost to get so-and-so done?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to cost you $18 million a year. Well, but all you're doing is, you know, throwing stuff around, but it can give you an estimate or a guesstimate.
Yeah. You're reading between the lines and so forth. Absolutely. I want to get back to the topic of Justin Fields because I got a couple of sound bites from Coach Eberflus and one from Poles talking about the quarterback. I want to play this for you about Flus's profile of a quarterback.
You know, I've been looking at quarterbacks all my life, you know, and I know what a good quarterback looks like and what's hard on the defense, you know, and a guy that has the ability to, you know, create, a guy that has the ability to throw with timing and accuracy, and the guy that can move the ball on the field when it's critical moments, like on 3rd down, 2-minute, and all those critical moments. So I've always looked at that, and that's been a fun process for me.
Greg, does that sound like Justin Fields? Because one of those things he doesn't do well, which is the fourth quarter. And then the second one, throwing a timing and accuracy. Accuracy, yeah, okay. Timing, no. So
No, I don't disagree with you. And I'm going to go back just to counteract that as I go back to who's been coaching in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, and then, you know, you go back to Shane Waldron, and he praised Waldron a lot. And I don't know if you caught the little blurb in there. He said Flus said he called Pete Carroll, had a long conversation about Pete, and Pete just went on and on about how Waldron did such a wonderful job with those quarterbacks. You know, and they weren't bringing in like new guys. They had guys in place. And the one guy, I mean, Geno Smith was a bust. You know, had no success in the league, and gets him in the Pro Bowl very first year.
Yeah, well,
so. I mean, there's a lot of way you can look at it. You know, and there's going to be, you know, part of the audience are going to say, "Gabriel, you're so full of it," and you know, I repeat. I talk how I think. This is how I think. I don't think like fans think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got a totally different way of working my way through these things, and it's my whole mindset is, what would I do? What's the best for the team? How do we build the team to be the best team? And you know, you look at the draft. Right now, they got 5 picks, and they don't have a second. They have a third, 2 fourths, a fifth, and that's it.
That's it.
Okay, something got to happen to get more picks.
Yeah, and I'm not too worried about the 7th round, but it would be nice to get a 6th rounder. And
here's the thing: a little different this year than last year.
Okay.
You had a huge drop-off in underclassmen entering the draft this year.
Yes.
So now your total depth, when you look at the big numbers, okay, it's not as good as it was. So on paper, you could say, I'm not going to get as good a player in the 6th or 7th round because of that. But teams that scout well are going to draft well.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to find your nuggets and the good players that you can see something in that you think you can develop. So, you know, from that standpoint of trying to get a good player, if I was still a personnel director, I'd say, yeah, I know I'm going to get good players. But the thing is, you don't have as big a pool to get those, and there's 31 other teams that are looking, and what you don't know is what they think of the guys.
Right.
Because remember, we've said 1,000 times, no 2 boards are alike, and especially when you get into day 3, they're not even close. There's going to be guys that the Bears pick that are going to be free agents on other teams' boards, and vice versa. That's just the way the draft works. You know, when you're sitting in the draft room, when you're looking and you're listening to the picks come across, you know, there's always comments. You go, what the hell are they taking that guy for? And then the guy turned out to be a starter in the second year. You know, it's how he fits what they're looking for.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this last show, but since you talked about Shane Waldron, this came to mind, and I want to make sure I get your input on it. Why did Luke Getsy get an offensive coordinator job with the Raiders?
God knows.
Well, isn't it because some people look at? I'm sorry?
Who do you catch with a goat?
Yeah, exactly. He's got photos or something. But isn't it because a lot of people looked at the tape and said, I like what Getsy was trying to do. He just didn't have the quarterback to match the schemes, and it was more Poles' fault of Getsy didn't get the type of production. Isn't that a possibility?
Well, the run game was strong 2 years in a row, so you got to look at that as a positive. The pass game was atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling is he didn't know how to use the personnel he had available. It didn't help that and that's why there's a new wide receiver coach. There was one receiver last year, well, two. Kmet, you had a tight end and you had a Z receiver in DJ Moore. Nobody jumped to the forefront at X or inside at the slot. And so, that's got to be taken care of. I think that there's going to be one veteran free agent signed. What kind of money they spend, who the hell knows? I would think it'd be more mid-price guy. The guy that I'd like to see, he's probably going to get more money than anticipated, is the Bills receiver,
mm-hmm.
Gabe Davis. Spot Track, who is pretty good, but not great with their estimates. Sometimes they're a little bit light.
Yeah.
They put his value at 13.4. He's a big, fast X receiver who always comes up big in big games.
Mm.
And a good person. And he plays on special teams. I mean, he's a non-selfish guy. Got better every year, had some injuries this year, but nothing serious. Really, his best year was 2022. He had that hellacious playoff game one year against Kansas City. But I mean, he would be a dynamic player to have across from DJ Moore. But what's he going to cost? And
right.
People think, well, we got $80 million round figure. Who do you want to listen to? Spot Track says we got more than 80. Over the cap says 78. The difference is like $3 million, but it's somewhere in that range. Who knows exactly what it is? The management council does, and the team knows. But it's a very receiver strong draft. They're going to draft somebody. Everybody expects them to draft somebody in the first round. But then I look back at Kansas City, where Poles spent his whole career. They never took a receiver in the first round. Not the whole time he was there or since, because Andy always thought I could develop a guy. Took a bunch in the second. Never took a guy in the first. And the second round, pretty good, damn good draft. Just, your show the other day with Danny.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of those guys are going to be second round picks.
Yep.
How about, DJ, who DJ is going to be on too. We've already said that. DJ's got 10 receivers in his top 50.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. J2K has a good question here. He says he doesn't think that the Bears are an attractive team for a free agent wide receiver. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because the free agent might want to know what the hell's the quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so with, you can't use DJ Moore as an example because Bears traded for him. But you can turn around and say, yeah, but look what happened when he got here. He just had a career year, and he had great years when he was at Carolina. We need somebody to complement him, so they're both great. I think that's one of the reasons why you hear he'd like to get something done before free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things I was told to get, this is rumor. Who knows what's truth or not? But there are teams waiting to see what Chicago does because they got plans. And their plans can't unfold until they see what Chicago does. And some of these teams want to, what they do, it has a determination on how they handle free agency. I think, last year's trade was like the first time we ever saw a trade happen that early, and it might have just opened a window to a new way of doing things, because they saw when you look at the overall success of the trade was a huge win for the Bears. And so, could be, what, they might have did it right there. People are saying, why the hell are they doing it so early? Well, you look at the results, and the results turned out to be huge for the Bears.
Yep. It's a great way to set up free agency. And now exactly, what your needs are, what your assets are, and so forth. Perhaps it would not be a great thing for a team that already has most of their team set, but for a team that's still building its infrastructure, I thought that was a very smart move. Greg, I got something I want to play for you. And those of us who follow GTF already know your feelings about this one particular player perhaps being drafted by the Chicago Bears. You're against it. I was watching ESPN, and Field Yates and Mel Kiper have a nice show on called First Draft. Right. And Field Yates, yeah, it is very good. Field Yates made his mini mock draft pick for the Chicago Bears. It was late to, and then Mel Kiper said the following.
Brock Bowers is not a tight end. He's a move him around weapon. Okay, he can do anything you want. You can line him up anywhere you want on a football field. All this kid's going to do is make big play after big play. He's fast. He has a sixth sense about things on a football field that all the great ones have. He is a guy that defenses could not even figure out a way to contain. Everything went through him. It's that offense at Georgia. Certainly Ladd McConkey, a heck of a player as well. But Brock Bowers, because he can do everything. He is a receiving weapon nightmare for defenses to try to handle. If I'm the Bears and I'm sitting there at 9 and he's on the board, I'm Caleb Williams or Justin Fields are jumping up and down saying, yes, yeah. I got a big-time weapon for my offense to help me out.
Well, you just took...
Okay, so if you were director of scouting or the general manager of the Chicago Bears and you had one of your scouting guys praising Bowers the way he just said, would you go back to the tape and rethink how this guy could fit into Shane Waldron's offense?
I'm going to give you a totally honest answer here. Ask me that same question next week after he works out this week.
Okay.
Because one thing that first of all, he's not a pure wideout. Mel hit it right in that he's a football player. He's a good football player. But in their scheme, he's really the move tight end. Right. He even lines up at the wing sometimes, but he doesn't line up as a Y, and that's Komet. So if you have him, he is going to be pretty much your slot receiver because you're going to want to keep him on the field because he's a big playmaker. So is he what you want in that position? So now you got to have your X, and then you could use him as your slot, and then you can go to 4 wides and bring in another guy. Can't get that. I want to know how big he is and how fast he is. I know he's a player, but don't forget he's playing in college where, it's not the NFL. And Atlanta took that guy from Florida a few years ago who runs like a 4.4, runs like a gazelle, and he hasn't done a whole lot in the league.
Yeah.
So it's a different game when you get up here. So, and the one reason I want to know how big he is I saw one picture and it bothered me only to the fact that he looked like he was 6'2".
He was standing next to Rob Gronkowski. That's the picture you saw.
Yeah. Well, Gronkowski's 6'5.5".
Right.
Okay, but Gronkowski towered over him.
Yes. I saw that same picture and I thought the same thing. I said, what is going on here? This guy looks like a small running back compared to
But
Gronk.
he's listed at 6'4". There's no way he's 6'4".
No effing way. We'll see what the numbers are.
It's, in fact, I did for next year, I did an edge player from Atlanta's Coast Conference School yesterday. And so I look up what the school has them listed at, and it was like 6'3", 252.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the tape, and you only can guess as you see the guy next to other people, right? And there's other guys that are listed at 6'3" and 6'4", and they towered over this guy. And I go, he isn't 6'3".
Yeah.
He might be 6'1", 6'1.5".
Mm-hmm.
So now, even though this guy had like 9 sacks or something last year, he's a good player. Does your enthusiasm stay way up there? Because, well, if he's 6'1.5", he might have 31.5-inch arms too. And now I'm not going to get all excited. So that's why stuff like that happens this week. Mm-hmm. Those measurables are important. There's a reason they do it. They don't do it just because they want to. Right. There's important. You got stats.
Mm-hmm.
Just, what guys excel. You want your tackles to have long arms. Your guards and centers don't have to have those big, long tree branches, but your tackles do, because it's a leverage game. Same way with defensive ends. Defensive ends, you want to have long arms.
At today's press conference, Ryan Poles talked about what he's hoping to find out during these one-on-one interviews at the Combine. And you, my good man, Greg Gabriel, promised me a story or 2 or 3 about some of the interviews you've conducted at the Combine.
My wife came home yesterday and said, "What are you watching?" I said, "I'm just doing stuff get ready for the Combine." She goes, "That's this week?" And I go, "Yep." She goes, "You miss it?" I go, I don't know, because it's long days.
Yeah.
We're talking 8 a.m. till 11 p.m. Every day, and really more like 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. Especially when you got, and I had to sit in on every single interview. And so, and speaking of that, when I was doing this, you could interview 50. It went up to 60. Now it's 45. And I had excuse me. I texted a scout friend of mine this year just to get that verified yesterday. Okay. And he sent it to me. We used to have 15 minutes. It's up to 20.
Oh, good.
Okay, so not that you're going to find out a lot, 15 or 20 minutes. You're not. Yeah. But I'll put it this way. You can decide not to take a guy on that 15 to 20 minutes, but you're not going to decide to take a guy.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Because a guy could just totally turn you off, which brings me up to some stories. Some are funny. Some are just like, there's a receiver we liked, talented guy. Now, I'm not going to mention any names nor schools.
Fair.
Because, that just wouldn't be fair. This guy, talented guy, had some issues. So we brought him in. And when you sit him down and see, when you get into these interviews, especially if the player has issues or maybe some law enforcement issues, you're prepared before you start the interview and you already got the right answers. So in this kid's case, we had talked to a lot of people, including some of his coaches at the school he was at, whatever. And what he had to say versus what we had from other people was total opposite. Everything was somebody else's fault and not his fault. And he refused to accept any responsibility for anything that happened at the school he was at. So he walked out of it, like not 20 seconds after he walked out of that door, we just eliminated him from our draft board. Right then and there, off the thing. So we don't want him, regardless of the talent, because you didn't think you could trust him. Now, did he play in the league? Yes. How long? Maybe 6 years or something. But he might have had one good year. His talent said he should have had a lot of good years. But it's because of the issues within himself that he didn't. There's another guy from Eastern School, another guy that, from a talent standpoint, we had a good grade on. This guy had an arrest at his school. And it was, right now, 2024, probably wouldn't make a big deal, but back then it did.
Okay.
So it was, better than 10 years ago. So probably more like 15 years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but the arrest he had was drug related, weed, which why I said it wouldn't probably make a big deal right now, but it was a big deal back then. So we had the police report and some statements of people in the room. And so we asked him about it. And he was like, he was reading a novel from a different library with the answers he gave us. So again, it's the same thing. We don't want him. Can't trust him. Because you want the guy, and we tell him right off the bat. You come in, hey, look, we're going to ask you some tough questions. We expect you to be honest. And in many cases, we already know the answer. So if you're going to lie to us, forget about it. You're not going to be a Chicago Bear. Yet they still lie because they don't believe you. Or it's because they've gotten away with, telling lies most of their life that they think they can still BS you. And we're not that stupid. So where'd you run off to? Oh, there you are. So then there's some good ones, funny ones. And we used to tape every single one of these interviews. So you had 50 a year times all the year, plus every interview we did at the All-Star games. So it was the East-West and the Senior Bowl or whatever. And so we had like tons and tons of tape. Now then it wasn't digitized. It was on the beta tapes, or beta deck things. And
yeah,
so we had like 4 or 5 interviews per deck. And so one guy, I got to sit back here a little bit to do this. We're talking to him. Now, we're in Indianapolis. It's mid-February. The combine was about a week earlier then. It was cold that week. There was probably 3 to 4 inches of snow on the ground. So the setting is there, right? So we're talking to him. Now, he's got jeans on and a T-shirt. So you look at what they're wearing when they walk in the room. Do they want to make, a good impression, or they could care less? Sometimes that's indicative of how they were brought up or whatever, because you're making little notes on everything. So anyway, we're asking him some questions, and all of a sudden it's like he just keels over in the chair. And Jerry is like closest to him. Jerry jumps up. He's like, what the hell? He goes, you all right? You all right? And he's like, God looks up and he goes, I think I just got bit by a motherfucking scorpion. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
We go, huh? This is not where he comes from. I don't want to say where he's from.
Yeah.
Which is somewhere in the South.
Okay.
But it's in Indianapolis, and it's 20 degrees, and there's a lot of snow around. There ain't no scorpions there.
That is hilarious.
It was funny. The guy who was taping this did the same guy from the video department did it every year. He wanted to make like a big blooper.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Because we kept this stuff for years.
Yeah.
2010, we still had the interviews from 2002.
Oh my gosh.
We go back and look at some of these things, hilarious. So there's another guy walks in the room. Nice guy. This is Lovey's first year. And he ends up, we don't draft him, but he ends up going pretty high, and he played, I looked it up last year to see, he played like 8-9 years.
Okay.
So he walks in the room, walks in the door. Now let me go back a little bit because they've changed the format on the interviews. Used to be, up until a couple years ago, that the players stay at the Crown Plaza Hotel, which was directly across the street from the old RCA Dome.
Mm-hmm.
So they just literally had to walk out of the hotel, across the street, and into the dome. A little bit longer to get over to Lucas Oil Field, but not much. I mean, 5 minutes further walk. But there was a bunch of rooms on the first floor and an inside courtyard. Mm-hmm. So each room had 2 doors, a door leading into the courtyard and a door into the hallway. So all the players were in the courtyard, and you'd go from, each team, all 32 teams had a room, and you had your dance card of when your interviews were with what team, etc. So you'd get that, one was from 8 to 8:15. Then your next interview might be at 8:30 to 8:45. So you just go from room to room, where we had to think. So you enter through the courtyard door. So this guy comes in, and there was Lovey, myself, Jerry, coordinator, position coach on his side of the ball, and the area scout. Mm-hmm. So the guy comes in, and I'll just say Joe Schmo, for lack of a better way of saying his name. Went up to every single guy in the room. Hi, Joe Schmo, glad to meet you. Hi, Joe Schmo, glad to meet you. So he does this with like 7 guys, right?
Nice.
Being very polite, and he's dressed nice. So he gets to Lovey last. But Lovey goes up to him. Lovey goes, hi, I'm Lovey Smith, and I'm glad to meet you. So the guy looks at Lovey, and he goes, Lovey Smith. Now, where have I heard that name before? And Lovey just looks at him. Well, I'm from Texas. He goes, I'm from Texas. The guy goes, that's it, Texas.
That is beyond hilarious. Got a question here from Jeff. He's wondering if in any of these interviews where people were not very impressive, he's asking, is it possible they sabotaged themselves in essence to avoid being drafted by the Bears?
I don't think so, because you got, like in the case of this guy who, I don't think was dressed appropriately. A lot of these guys have the combine sweats on that they're given, so they're like dressed in the combine uniform. But this guy had jeans and a t-shirt, and which is fine. But he might have had 6 or 7 interviews scheduled that night. Wow. So I mean, it wasn't like he was going to go back up into his room and change his clothes because he didn't want to play for us.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that happens. Mm-hmm. It's I'll tell you one other story, because we did not have at that time, I think interviews ended at 10:30. So this is 2005. Mm-hmm. And was it 2006? 2006. 5 or 6, one or the other. So it's 10:30. We're done with our interviews. Guy walks in the door. Kid walks in the door. He goes, I know you guys didn't have me on your interview list, but I want to come and talk to you anyway.
Ooh.
So come on in. Now, by this time, Jerry and Lovey were already gone. They left right after the last interview. But there was me. There was Ron Turner. There was a quarterback coach at that time. A couple scouts. This guy sat in a room, talked to us for a good 40 minutes. Sat in the couch. We had a couch chair. He had his arms out like this. relaxed as hell. Want to know who the player was?
I have no idea.
Aaron Rodgers.
Somebody guessed it too. J2K Rodgers interview. Well done, J2K. That is interesting that he sought the interview. Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. That whole thing was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
He went 24th.
Yeah.
Okay. And nobody could figure out why, because in the days leading up to the draft, it's like he could be number one. And San Francisco had number one. Mike Nolan was the head coach at San Francisco and had final say at that time. And he ended up taking Smith from Utah, who had a pretty good career, but not an Aaron Rodgers career.
Exactly.
But there was talk, could be either or. Well, all of a sudden, nobody takes a quarterback. The guy's there. And it's 7th pick. He's still there. It's 10th pick. He's still there. It's 14th pick. He's still there. Green Bay, and Ted Thompson was the GM. He finally says, well, I ain't passing.
Yeah. It's too good.
And they had no plans on taking a quarterback at that year. And, they did. And the only reasonable reason we could come up with is that, you go into the draft and you're prepared and you're guessing, you're anticipating who's going to be available. And then you make up your mind on certain players. Okay, if this guy's here, this is the guy I want. And if he's gone, this is number 2. He's gone, this is number 3. Well, you got past maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. Now it was like, we were prepared for this. We didn't do all the homework on it. And then it became, is there something wrong that we didn't know? Because everybody else is passing too.
Yeah.
And that's the only...
it gets scary.
The only thing we can come up with, because we reviewed it. And I think a lot of teams, talking to other teams, they said the same thing. Everybody thought there was something hidden that they missed on. And that's why everybody was passing it.
Badass Warthog wants to know, do you downgrade a player who in the interview can't articulate his thoughts properly?
No. Because, we're talking, give me 1 second here, let the dog out the door here. He wants to
absolutely.
Go see my wife.
And I'm actually surprised that Greg said no, because, and that's me. I like players, people that can articulate their thoughts really well. Communication is so important to me. And so if I'm interviewing a guy who can't articulate his thoughts, wow, that's got to be a red flag for me. But
okay.
So you don't downgrade a player, huh?
First of all, it's like, what position does he play?
Okay.
And and you've already got reports and you've talked to coaches. So you've got a pretty good sense of, because when you're talking to coaches, you're trying to find out his ability to learn and retain, how fast he picks up things. Does he make mental mistakes on the field? So you've got an idea.
Right.
About that, before the guy ever walks in the room. And some guys, they're just, they're nervous because it's a weird situation. It's a job interview. If the guy's a good player, but he can't articulate well, so what?
Okay.
It's, can he learn football? Is he instinctive? Is he a good teammate? Is he a good person? And I'll give you a perfect example. Frank Gore could not articulate very well. And when they had the Wonderlic test,
he had a terrible score. Yeah.
Terrible. Like, single digit score, but it's like, something's wrong with this guy. No, it's not. Smart as a tack. I mean, he was sharp guy. He had a reading problem. Okay. And he had a problem with articulating. Well, hell, the guy played 1 million years in the darn league. And I'll tell you a story about Frank. I went I made a school call going into his last year. I was there during 2-a-days, and I was with Joe Collins, who was with the Giants at the time. Joe's a longtime friend of mine. He was player personnel director for the 49ers when Vinny Serrato and that crew was there for a while. And when Vinny and those guys, he was with Vinny in San Francisco, and then he was player personnel director in Cleveland when that group took over the new Cleveland Browns. And so we're there, and we're the only two guys there because it was during 2 days. And so we set up a meeting with the running back coach after. We went up into his office and started talking to him, and he just went on and on about Frank Gore and what a person he was and how he worked at the game. He goes, I'll tell you a story when he was a freshman. He goes, because as you know, he goes, Frank doesn't speak real well. And when you meet him, you're going to think, well, he's not very smart, but he's going to work at it. He goes, this is the story I got to tell you. So he said, he gets a call. This is like freshman year, 3 or 4 days into camp. He gets a call from Frank at 2 a.m. Everything all right, Frank? He goes, Coach, I just wanted to tell you I got it. It took a while, but I got it.
What did he get?
No, he
I understand. I understand. Okay. That is wild. And as you said, I think he played 14 seasons in the NFL. Yeah. So I'm really glad you answered that question, because I would have immediately said, this is a red flag. I can't even, communicate a simple sentence. But
if it's a quarterback, I got concerns.
Yeah.
If it's a defensive lineman, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's your point? You know what his job is? His job is to beat the hell out of the guy across from him.
Exactly. Don't even communicate you're sorry. Just go tackle. Right. Zach asked the question a long time ago. He says, if the Commanders trade aggressively, as been said, and we talked about that early part of the show, he wants to know, would that impact Justin Fields' trade value in any way, and vice versa? So an aggressive move by Washington to move up from 2 to 1, they sent a boatload of picks. Now, all of a sudden, do teams know, okay, they got to trade Justin? They're not, or
no, if they were going to trade the pick, they wouldn't be trading Justin.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So would that make any impact on potentially trading? Because one of the scenarios I went through after reading Peter King's story, if the Bears were to move down, is they could potentially draft Drake May as opposed to making that trade with the Atlanta Falcons, which is why I started looking at some of his tape. Very impressive young man. So
now he had a little fall off too at the end of the season, but it was a different. He had some missed throws, and he didn't have a team. North Carolina wasn't a really good team. He was the team. Mm-hmm. He had one receiver who actually missed the first part of the season because he was a transfer, and there was NCAA eligibility problems that the player had. His name was Walker, and I think he missed the first 3 or 4 games. And then when the NCAA finally gave him eligibility, the guy just took off. He had a pretty strong second half of the season. But, May, and Pep is another guy who knows May because when Pep was at Michigan, I think when May was a junior, he had already started the recruiting process. So he got to know the kid well, and he said, really, really smart kid. Great family, very supported mom and dad. So, he was all accolades about the guy as far as person. Now, he never saw him as a college player. I'm sure he'd take, but just in the recruiting process, when he's, go down to meet the kid, met the family and all that, he was real impressed.
Peter Peter A has a question for you. He says, when can teams begin to set up those private 30 workouts? Does it have to be after their pro day? Could have it already happened? What's the window?
Okay, Peter, you got two things mixed up here. You got 30 visits that you can bring in. Now, a player like JJ does not count in your 30 visits. Why? He's local.
Okay.
It's 30 people from outside.
Gotcha.
Okay. You could bring in a local guy 10 times if you want. You can work him out 10 times if you want. And, like Northwestern is a local school. Northern Illinois is a local school. The league gave Notre Dame as Chicago's local school. Illinois is actually the Colts local school, not the Bears. Because Illinois is really, it's like 2-hour drive
Proximity,
from Indianapolis. But anyway, that year that Trubisky was drafted, Kaiser, the Notre Dame quarterback, was brought in at least 4 times.
Ooh.
He was here for the local workout. And then some private workouts. But so like a guy like JJ, you can bring in many times as you want because he's local. You just can't do it after the draft's on Thursday. The previous Wednesday is the last day you can bring a guy in, whether he's local or from out of town. You can go see him. He can't come see you. But to get back to the question, you can bring in 30 guys that aren't local for visits. Your private workouts, you can have as many as you want, but it can be in one of 2 places: the kid's school or the kid's hometown. So let's say they wanted to do a private workout with Caleb. They can do it at USC, actually anywhere in LA. Doesn't have to be at USC. It could be anywhere in LA. Or they can do it in DC.
Gotcha. Okay. Cornelius wants to know, will Drake May benefit from Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels not throwing at the combine?
No, that's the teams could care less if a quarterback doesn't work out at the combine. In fact, and I think I might have said this, if I'm an agent, I'm telling my guy don't throw.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week, yeah.
It's not conducive. It's the only position group that the combine can't help. And it's just the way it's set up because you got maybe 22, 25 receivers. If there's 2 receiver groups and 2 quarterback groups and you got a bunch of receivers in there, well, you have them, they run like 7 different routes and then the gauntlet and some other stuff. You're throwing 2 or 3 throws. You go to the back of the line. You wait 5-6 minutes. You throw again. You don't have any idea who you're going to be throwing to. It's the next guy in line. And it's never the same guy because they reverse the order. So that purposely happens. So you could throw a great throw and the guy could have an awful route. Vice versa. The guy could have a great route and you have an awful throw. But there's no rhythm that the quarterback is able to get.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
Every agent knows this, and that's why they don't want to work out. Because
Swift
they don't want a chance that he could leave a bad impression on somebody.
Right.
Through really no fault of his own. That's the combine's problem.
And that's why the pro days are so perfectly, tightly scripted for the benefit of the quarterback.
Well, right. And those are, in my opinion, they're as bad as the damn combine.
Yeah.
Because of that. It's like if I'm a coach, a quarterback coach, coordinator, personnel director, and I go to a quarterback pro day, all I can do is watch. I have no input on that workout at all. If I go to see a defensive end, I got input.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm doing some of the workout. I'm taking them through drills with the quarterback. It's his guru,
Mm-hmm.
who is setting up the script. It's a rehearsed script. I make 55, 60 throws, depending on the player, all different types of throws. But there are always things that he can do well. Anything that he can't do well is not in that script.
Gotcha.
They're rehearsed again. He probably rehearses that script four times minimum before his pro day. So now, they're expected to do well. Go back to the year, I think, and I firmly believe this. Excuse me. When Justin was drafted, there was no private workouts allowed that year. There was no combine that year.
Yeah, because
they brought guys in for medicals actually late, and that was it. So you had the pro days, and that's all you could go to.
Mm-hmm.
Not a doubt in my mind that the mistakes of Trey Lance and Wilson were because of that. Because I think, with a quarterback, you got to have a private workout.
Interesting.
That's my opinion. In fact, polls alleviated to that. Yeah, because if we could set them up. But who's going to say no to the Bears?
Nobody.
Their first pick.
That's right.
That's going to be the first one they set up. When do you want to do it? But they won't do it. Like when I was talking to McCarthy's agent. Okay, I just don't remember the date, 20th, 21st, something like that. March is his pro day for Michigan. He won't do a private workout until after that. So he's got basically 5 more weeks to do a private workout. 4 weeks, really.
So to conclude with Peter's question, when does that one-on-one process of interviewing players at Hallis Hall, when does that begin? After?
Right after the combine, whenever you can bring guys in. Teams are already scheduling guys.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you schedule it through the agent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's cases where, they want to make the flight arrangements easy and the travel easy for the kid.
Mm-hmm.
So you might, let's say Green Bay, Indy, and Chicago all want to bring a kid in on a 30 visit. Well, he may start off at Green Bay, and Green Bay pays for that flight. Then we pay for the flight from Green Bay to Chicago. And maybe Indy and us split the cost of Chicago to Indy, and Indy pays for his flight back. So everybody shares. I mean, there's no unnecessary problems. Teams can work together with that. Yeah. And have done it for years. And it's just to make the process a lot easier on the kid.
Badass Warthog is asked a couple of times about the NFL Combine. Is it losing its importance? And I know that you've shared with me that they have considered changing some of the drills, like the bench.
There's people that want to do away with the bench. Yeah. Fans are under the impression that it's all about the workout, which that is the least important part of the combine to the teams. Yes, what's nice about the workout is that, let's say, you're doing the wide receivers, you got one group all together, they're doing the same workout on the same day, on the same surface, at the same place, at the same time. You can truly compare apples to apples. Mm-hmm. Okay, but now you already got 2 of the top 3 receivers aren't going to work out in Neighbors and Harrison. That's not a big deal. So what?
Right.
The important part of the combine is getting the damn medical done. And that's the whole reason the thing started. Our first one was in January 85. Before that, there was 3. There was 3 different smaller combines. There's National Scouting, Blusto, and Quadra. Quadra was Buffalo, Dallas, Seattle, San Francisco. And they had 3 different combines, so to speak, but it was more, and a lot of times they were held like 3 weeks in a row. And you couldn't get every kid to go to all 3 of them. So you had like some would go to 2 and skip the 3rd or whatever. And so then they got this, and that ended in 84. Finally, everybody got together. Wait a minute, that's how they got the name Combine. Let's combine this thing. And everybody do it together. Harry, I was working with National Scouting for the fall of 84. And then I went to the Giants at the end of the fall, right in November. And Harry Buffington, who ran National, was the first guy to put together the combine. It was actually at Arizona State that first year in January 85. And Harry's asked, well, why'd you pick Arizona State? He goes, well, he went back and looked at weather records and stuff over 15 years, and the chance of rain was supposed to be like 8%, something like that. It was cold and it rained 2 days. So that did away with Arizona State. When we were at the next year, which was 86, January 86, we were at the Superdome the week following the Bears win over the Patriots. So it wasn't like a month after, like you got now or 3 weeks. It used to be literally the week right after the Super Bowl. Like the next year I was with the Giants, we won the Super Bowl. I didn't go home from LA. Our Super Bowl was in Pasadena. I went from Pasadena and that was the first of the Indianapolis Combines. I flew from Pasadena to Indy because the Combine was starting up like 2 days later.
Yeah. Jeff is asking, will we ever see a day where the workout portion will be eliminated and they would just focus on interviews and measurements and medical? But Jeff, I don't think so, because the NFL is working really hard to make it a TV event. I mean, they moved some of it to prime time. This is TV dollars, so they're going to figure out a way.
Fans want to see the workout.
Yes,
it's not as important to the clubs, because the clubs know they're going to get a workout. They're going to get at the pro day. Now, here's the one thing, and this was my argument. When kids ask me for advice or ask us for advice, this is what we'd say. Look, you're foolish not to work at the combine. And a lot of times it's not the kid who doesn't work out, it's his agent. The agent just, he'd rather have the kid work out once or whatever. And you never interview a kid after. A lot of times you get them 2 days before the workout or the day before the workout or whatever. So we'd ask, right away, are you going to work out tomorrow? And the kid would tell us, of course. And when he said, no, I'm just going to wait for my pro day, and say, well, let me throw this at you. If you work out here and you don't have a good workout, your pro day in 3 weeks is another chance to work out, and you got to make up test. So if you can knock it out of the park in 3 weeks at your pro day. Now, do it the way you want to do it. You skip tomorrow, and you're going to work out in 3 weeks at your school. What if you have a bad day in 3 weeks? You don't get no makeup tests, and you just hurt yourself, because now you're going to be labeled as slow or whatever. And I'll give you an example of a player who did not have a great combine and just got into the Hall of Fame. Devin Hester. Devin ran in the high 4.4s at Indy. And Miami was one of the first pro days. It was like 10 days later. And, he was on field turf at Indy. And then, I don't remember if the Lucas Oil Field was open or we were at the old RCA Dome. I don't remember the year Lucas Oil. But Devin didn't run to Devin standards. So he worked out at Miami the following week, and it was a Saturday morning. It was gorgeous, probably 80 degrees, and he runs 4.35 on grass, which is, slower surface than field turf, and, just tears it up. And that's what you saw on tape. But, he's the perfect example of, I got a makeup test available if I don't do as good as I wanted to do.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Levante just asked a good question, but Levante, I'm going to table that to next week because I know the answer and it's a bit complicated. And I'd actually, I'll prepare a graphic for your response. Here's a question from.
Now you got me. My interest is piqued.
It's about your grading system for players, and it's that 3-point grading system that you have, a color and a number and so forth.
Okay.
You shared that last year, so we'll put together a graphic to help explain that. Jahan Dotson is a player that who asked this question? Darn it, I lost it. But somebody asked a question about perhaps including Jahan Dotson, the Commanders' slot wide receiver out of Penn State, as part of any potential deal with the Bears and Commanders. Do you think that he would be a good player? He's under contract for a couple of years. He was a former first-round draft pick out of Penn State. What are your thoughts?
You could ask for anything you want.
That's right.
Last year, I'm of the belief that the Bears gave 3 names to Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Burns,
right?
DJ, and the defensive tackle, and I can't think of the defensive tackle's name. But one of those 3 players, and Carolina agreed on more.
Okay. And as Jeff says, he'd rather have one of the interior linemen that Washington has. Those they got 2 $20 million guys in that interior line. By the way,
if I'm Washington, I wouldn't do that because they let their 2 ends go.
Yeah, exactly.
At the trade deadline, and they're decided to keep, the 2 interior guys. And the one guy's deal was done last year, and the other deal was done, I think, 2 years ago. They're relatively new deals, and by today's standards, they're pretty good deals. Because if you recall, Allen was going to be a free agent. Didn't he get his deal done right before the start of free agency?
Yes.
But that was in the area of $20 million a year. I mean, they weren't cheap. Don't forget what last year, the move was 9 slots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If in fact there's truth to this, what Peter had and what some other people say, it's 1 slot. You're not getting what you get for 9 slots.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of the argument you can make, which can help, is, you can use the generational player, even though I don't believe that, but you can use it. He's local to Washington, so he's going to put people in the seats. And that, attendance-wise, that team has struggled the last few years, and they're trying to get a new stadium built. And you got a new owner who wants to make a splash.
Yep.
And on top of that, he's been an owner. He's an NBA owner too. And the NBA goes crazy when it comes to making draft picks.
That's so true.
And your president is an former NBA executive. So you got really 2 NBA guys running the show there on top of the GM. And so I think it changes a lot of the scenario a little bit, because they might carry that NBA thought over to the NFL as far as trying to get a deal done.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Tim, you wanted me to ask the question that you asked earlier. I lost it. So, and we only got a couple of minutes left. So I am going to ask this one from Dennis. What does Greg think of Jared Verse? To me meaning Dennis, he looks like a clone of Khalil Mack. He should be there at number 9. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think he's a Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack went at 4 or 5.
From Buffalo, right?
Yep. And Verse is taller. Verse is bigger. I don't think, Verse is probably going to come in at around 265 to 270, I would think. probably have his weight down a little bit so he can work out good. I don't think I like Verse, but to me, Verse is very similar to Sweat.
Big body.
You know, he's a bigger guy. He doesn't have that explosive movement that like a Khalil has. I think there's other guys in this draft that are more like that, but that, you know, it becomes flavor. And, you know, if they don't sign a guy, and by the way, a good name that I keep hearing, unless he gets re-signed, and I can't think of his last name, the defensive end from the Texans, who had 12 and a half sacks last year.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Texans. I'll look him up.
He's like 27 or 28 years old now. He'll be 27 or 28 when the season starts.
Well, it's not Will Anderson. He was drafted last.
No.
Yeah.
He's the opposite side.
Is it Grenard? I think it is Grenard.
It's shit. I can't even remember the number now. I looked at the tape. I really like the tape. Guy, he's not big. He's only like 255, 258, but he's strong. You know, he can set the edge. But he had 12 and a half sacks last year. That was his big year. And
Dallas Turner.
No, Dallas Turner's with Alabama right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me see.
Dallas Turner is a very, you know, I can go into it, but it'll take me too long.
Jonathan Grenard.
Yes. Jonathan Grenard.
Yeah.
And good freaking football player.
Yeah.
Now,
very good.
Houston's got a lot of money. So, you know, if they want to bring him back, they can bring him back. But, you know, using Spot Trek, I think Spot Trek said 12 and a half, 13, something like that. And I'm going off the top of my head, which is a reasonable number as compared to might cost me 23 for a 30-year-old hunter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you got to look at the big picture. Okay, what am I trying to accomplish?
Right.
I'm hoping to get this, and this in free agency, and this, and this in the draft. So you look at packages, and what's the best package for the team? Don't think about just an individual player. Think about the total package.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that struck me when they released the numbers for the salary cap is that, you know, a lot of fans are going to say, oh, well, now we can afford that $25 million pass rusher, whatever position. But the problem is that everybody's salary goes up proportionately, doesn't it? I mean, you know, now, in fact, there's word now that the running backs are not going to have franchise tag numbers because it's been unfair to them. Their salaries are going to go up. Offensive linemen salaries.
That remains to be seen. Because with running backs, and only because not a lot of guys make it to a second contract, and the guys that do, more often than not, fall off a cliff. Mm-hmm. So you got wasted money on the back end of the contract. So teams are going to fight that until extended play time proves different.
Mm-hmm.
But the beating they take, how are they going to prove it different?
Yeah, I hear you. Sports Chicago Style wants to know, did you see the videotape of Cam Newton in that fight at that football camp?
Well, I saw maybe 20 seconds, unless there was more than that.
Well, that's about it. There were some other angles, but it's basically the same stuff over and over from a different angle.
Who is dumb enough to want to fuck with him? I mean, have you ever seen the guy in person?
Yes.
He's a freaking monster.
Yeah. And he was towering.
His hands are about this big. He was throwing some guys around like they were ragdolls.
He really was. Here's the thing, though, and I'm not blaming anyone. I don't know what started it. There were some
I don't know what happened. So I just saw the video.
But I do know that I have seen Cam in other situations at football camps and so forth, and he likes to shoot the shit with people. And I think it probably just got out of hand. And my concern is you gotta be careful when you're shooting the shit with somebody. It's like being at a bar. All of a sudden, hey, I make a joke about what you're wearing, and all of a sudden you get punched in the face. Hey, what are you,
Yeah,
love
but,
your Taylor?
you know, the guy you're punching in the face is 6'5", 260 pounds. Okay,
Exactly.
so what's going on with the brain matter of the guy who throws the punch? In other words, you better knock his ass out, because otherwise I'm going to be on the wrong end of this.
Zach makes a good point getting back to the contract thing. He says perhaps rookie contracts should be performance based. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't. In a way, it is, because now you get if when you get into the final, all rookie contracts, rookie draft choices, not undrafted free agents.
Mm-hmm.
All rookie draft choice contracts are 4-year contracts, and they've got that performance pool that they get both at the end of the year and then based on play time that they've had, their salary goes up commensurate. Larry Borum isn't getting. Did you ever see what Larry Borum's cap number is this year?
No.
It's like $3.5 or $3.8 million because he's played a lot.
Yeah. Okay. That's
okay.
fair.
So it's your first couple of years is what it is. It's you're getting pretty much the rookie minimum plus the amortized portion of your bonus. You know, you're getting the bonus all at once, but it's for cap dollars. It's spread out over the length of the contract. But if you're a player, you're getting more money. You know, so in a way it is. In fact, it is. It's exactly what it is. It's performance based. If you outperform where you got drafted, that's one of the reasons Justin's 5th-year option, because it's based on, you know, amount of play time they have and performance. You know, the difference between him playing and not playing was like $10 million or more to pick up that 5th-year option.
Yeah. Raymond asked a question, which has really been my argument about against trading Justin Fields. He says, "Hey, Greg, wouldn't it be premature to trade Justin Fields in year 3 of this rebuild, given the fact that the Bears are just now establishing a foundation for player development?"
I agree with that.
I totally agree with you, Raymond.
I just think you're setting yourself up. Again, This is how I think.
Yeah.
The team, the second half of last year, took like 3 steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they played a lot better. Their record was a lot better. What, they go 5-2 the last 7 games, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Going in the right direction. You put a rookie in there, and I don't want to hear what Stroud did. That's a once in 15-year deal. That's fact. So you're backing up.
Right.
And hoping
Mm-hmm.
that guy becomes, because we all know that there's first overall pick or first quarterback pick. A lot of them bust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a question by Ravi regarding Dallas Turner and about him potentially bulking up. Ravi's question about the Bears potentially wanting that Dallas Turner to bulk up if they draft them. What do you think about that? Dallas Turner is known as a speed edge rusher. I think he's about 240 pounds or so.
No, he really played at 252, according to a guy who made school calls.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, that's program weight. That's why you don't look at program weights.
Yeah. It's a joke. It's a joke.
So
do you think the Bears would want him to beef up?
No, I mean, that's what Khalil Mack was when he first came out.
Okay.
But Khalil Mack Khalil Mack ran in the 4.5s.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ran at Buffalo's Pro Day also, and also ran in the 4.5s. It wasn't like that's real fast for a defensive end, but
really.
You know, there's guys that run faster. Anderson last year ran in the 4.6s.
Mm-hmm.
I think Turner and Anderson are going to be about the same size. I don't remember exactly what Anderson weighed last year. I'd have to look it up. But I think Turner's faster.
Okay. So let
Anderson
me
was
ask.
a better player. Anderson was a better player in college.
Yeah.
But he's the second pick in the draft, too.
I don't think anyone will argue with that. So let's say you're picking 9th or anywhere between 9 and 15, and both Dallas Turner, which is unlikely, and Latu are there, and you guys have them graded similarly, and you want that pass rusher. Who would you favor, Dallas Turner or Latu?
Did Latu pass the physical?
Yes, he's passed the physical in this hypothetical. So that's your answer, okay?
Latu.
Eric wants to know your thoughts about Darius Robinson, the rusher
Love him.
from Missouri. Yeah.
No, I was thinking of Chop Robinson. Darius, I haven't done as much. Darius is another big edge who may
he's
end
a
up
big
being
guy.
a 3. Very explosive. He's like 285, 290. So he's a big guy. Good football player. He's going to be a first-round pick. Is he what the Bears want, though? When you look at what they're trying to get, I don't see it. A lot of this stuff is really too early for us to talk about because, like in free agent, 2 weeks from today, we're even though free agency doesn't open until, is it 2 weeks from today or 3 weeks?
3 weeks, I want to say.
No, 2 weeks. March 11th is the day you can start.
Oh, yes.
Negotiations.
Right.
But you can agree to a deal on the 11th.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't sign the guy until the 13th.
Right.
So theoretically, 2 weeks from today, we're going to know who maybe 3 new guys are. Okay, now when we, maybe more than that, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Now it becomes a lot easier to say, okay, this is how we can see the draft playing out. They've taken care of this. So let's say they sign an edge. They sign the guy from Houston or whatever. And that takes that edge player out of that number 9 equation, in my opinion.
Okay. Kay says Robinson has that versatility that Flus loves and adds that he's got 35-inch arms, although we'll know that for sure in the next couple of days. One last question for you before we get out of here as we approach the 2-hour mark. How are you feeling? How are you feeling, by the way? 2 hours. Look at you. You can go another 2 hours, I bet.
I'm just coughing a little bit, but that's okay.
You sound great.
I did all my reports I had to do today. I got my honeydew list. I got to go to the grocery store.
Got to run those errands for the wife. Absolutely.
Hey, that's right.
All right. So last year, the Bears traded the number 1 overall pick on March 10th, I think it was 4 days after the combine ended last year, maybe a little more.
No, it was a little more than that because the combine was actually a couple of days. No, it was a couple of days later because free agency was on the 15th last year.
Okay.
Part of that being that, we got leap year this year, so we got an extra day in February.
Right.
So yeah, you're about right.
Safe to say that around the 10th or so, we are going to see a trade either of the number 1 draft pick or of Justin Fields.
Maybe. And only because that's if free agency comes into play as part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
If free agency does not come into play and we're strictly talking draft picks, and then, teams are going to want to get all their information in, you might be waiting, till the first week in April or longer because you want to get those workouts in.
Mm-hmm.
That's when a lot of these love affairs, when coaches start falling in love with players, like, I have this guy. That's happening. That's the month of March.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I said when I was having this conversation with this guy, when he said he thinks it could happen before the end of the combine, I'm going, I mean, I thought last year was an aberration when it was that early, but there was a reason for it, and the reason was free agency.
Yeah. All right. Tooch just joined us right as we're closing the show, and he's got a question, so we got to put this in. Tooch will be with us tonight at 8 o'clock on the Bear Their Souls show. He says, let's say Justin shows very modest improvement, but there are still things to improve upon. Maybe some of the same concerns are still there. What sort of contract should Fields expect if they don't pick up that fifth-year option in March?
I think you go back to what we talked about earlier, try to do something like Green Bay did with Love.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have the leverage to do that. Remember we were talking about that earlier?
Yes,
almost
indeed.
a couple hours ago, and that
That's right.
first thing that when I heard Pohl say that, I'm going, he's playing a leverage game here. Part of this is being said purposely.
Yeah.
And that, again, none of us know what's going to happen. But if in fact, to be fair, they probably don't know what exactly is going to happen yet. They haven't made a final decision yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you still got to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to play the game correctly. And
it was on full display today at the Combine.
Yep.
Absolutely. Greg, fantastic show. And I want a special thanks out to everyone in the chat. Great questions. You make this show even more enjoyable for me and for Greg. This show will be available immediately on demand here on YouTube, and will be up on your audio podcast in about 15 minutes. Greg, Peter King is coming in a couple of weeks. Daniel Jeremiah has made a commitment. Dane Brugler's made a commitment. We've got commitments from a couple of other major people.
McCarthy has made a commitment. But
Greg has told me, I'm doing your fucking job, Aldo. I'm booking all these guests. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. You got the Rolodex.
An extra 3 cents on the paycheck.
There you go. There'll be a bonus in this month's paycheck. Another $1.
A nickel?
Thank you, Zach, and thank you, everyone else. We will see you all next week. We'll let you know what time, what day next week. Best way to stay on top is
next week's Monday.
Monday, we will be on Monday.
Next week's Monday, because every other Tuesday is the crazy day.
Exactly.
And and we will review the combine
numbers. Absolutely.
At least on guys that kind of jumped out, and they especially jumped out at need positions.
Great. All right, and more football talk tonight, 8 p.m. Bear Their Souls with the Tooch and Dan Aguirre and myself. Goodbye, everybody.
See you later. Thank you all.